Okay, we'll call this meeting to order of the Stanley City Council, and it's a public meeting concerning phase 2 of the project planned for, I think, 24. So with that, we can get started. Ken, if you want to.
Thank you, sir. So let's start off real quick, going over what we hope to accomplish for you this evening. I'll give you a brief introduction to what the project is, cover a little history here. This is actually part of a project that was looked at in 2019. That's when the original public hearings were held on it. And that was for the big project, phase 1 and phase 2. It was north of 40 blocks of water, sewer, street improvement projects. And it was decided to break that into 2 phases. So phase 1 was what was constructed last year and wrapped up this summer. And now phase 2 is what we have here. First phase was 23 to 24 blocks. And this phase is 18 to 19. Now, first phase didn't have quite as much underground in it. This one's got more. So, level of effort is probably very similar to both, or on both projects. More water and sewer connections will happen this time, more underground in phase 1. So it's a little bit shorter total length, but more underground improvements that need to be done to take care of any groundwater infiltration problems and water main that is, if you look at it cross-eyed, it's ready to break. Save Public Works some effort on that. What we'd like to do is take care of those questions that you guys might have about your individual properties. If you wish to sit and go through all the notes and everything else, we're more than happy to continue that. But if we want to get you guys your pertinent information first, and then we can move on to going through any questions that the council has to get through this plan. And we'll roll through the whole plan set, but I just as soon focus on those things that are probably most important to everyone. Any questions before we start that?
Nope.
Okay, with that, would you like to point out the addresses of properties you have, and we can just flip to those pages, or do you want to listen to some notes, reviews?
I think we just start block by block, basically, and
go through
and run through this.
the plan and profile sheets?
Yeah.
themselves?
Let's start on that north line and head both Cotton Markwood on the city road there, so Third Avenue.
On Third Avenue? Okay, so you want to flip us up to Third? Let's look at removals first, to start there, and then we'll walk right through the different improvements. On Third, so sheet 2 and sheet 3, is that right? These are this is the removal that we're looking at. I don't know that it makes a ton of difference for the individual quantities. Recognize your addresses here.
Point out your lots, Todd.
303 and I own 303 and 309. And what is this purplish?
That's the driveway. So we're taking the driveway and one square of concrete out here, and then this sidewalk in front of 303, one going back, and then a couple of panel sidewalk there.
Why was that? Most of that was redone in that last phase.
We've got the utility here that we need to get in.
How far in are you taking those sewer lines?
To the property line, so the backside of the sidewalk.
Our, what's the red checkered line here?
That is bituminous surface removal. So they've got hot mix here on an asphalt driveway instead of a concrete
On
driveway.
top of concrete, they got flat top.
So that's why this is all patched that way.
So on this section, you're gonna do the sewer line?
Yeah, we'll flip up to that next page. Patrick, go to the plan and profile, please. So our sewer starts right at this location. That sewer line was extended over here, and what we're doing is we're setting a manhole here directly out in front of Third, because we have a storm sewer crossing.
Why would you put another manhole there when you got one 30 feet away?
That's what I'm explaining to you, sir. We have to put one here because the grade on this pipe is steep. And what we run into is a problem with this sewer line running up, and I can't say that it is the reason that we're having a problem with it, but this one runs up steep, and we have flat sections of pipe that we can gain grade here by putting in a manhole and flattening it out. The state requirements are that if you're changing grade in a pipe, you have to put in a manhole.
Well, are these manholes gonna be in any better condition than the ones in the first phase? Where after they put the manhole in, they poured that square of concrete, and now they're all that much too high? How are you guys gonna eliminate that on this project? If you don't know what I'm talking about, drive down Third.
Yeah, I don't.
Third to Main Street, drive that a couple times and see how many high spots you would drive over.
So the problem when those stick up like that, it's not that the manhole comes up, it's that the pavement comes down.
Then you have
So-
an action problem, so what are you gonna do?
That's
about that?
exactly right. We're going to test and make sure that they get the action the way it's supposed to be.
What are you gonna do with the old part of Third? Are you gonna correct the first phase before you move into the second phase, or are you just gonna leave it alone? Because the reason of my question is, if the first phase isn't even a year old and it's in that bad a shape, what is the guarantee in the second phase that that same thing's not gonna happen? I'm not gonna have that problem in front of my house.
Can I do that question for you? So, actually, projects are completed in a year period where it's called warranty work, and contractors can come back and fix things, so like, those bump ups come up so high, the snow plow or chicken or something, and so we talk to the contractor to get fixed. We've already had one on the first railroad that had to be repaired, because the seal between it broke. We don't wire it in there, and we underneath the road. So there is, and that one has stayed down now, been done after the fact, and really not staying. So there is avenues you can go about correcting if it becomes an issue. Our hope is that they don't pop up, that's why we have this compactor that's going to maintain our road and maintain those water levels down, and conditions suit that.
So just to clarify on that, I was up there and looked at that one in front of the old solar implement building, that's what it's talking about. They came in and fixed that one, there was one down by Senex that they fixed. And then there was also probably 4 or 5 panels of sidewalk that they walk them, and they readily came back and fixed all that, so. To
The worst one
think
right
that
now
we're
is,
not gonna have something, I guess, to me is.
the worst one right now is in front of like Dale Keelan's Margie Jaw House right there. There's a terrible. You know, people, there's some terrible.
So and that's something that, like Puffy and her crew should be noticing and then reporting to us so that they can, within that year's window, they can get back in and fix it.
So if you take that So you're gonna change the grade on that sewer, but you're gonna leave the water alone. On that third.
Yes, we got water, our water connection is out here in Third Street.
And then
We're
the
not
line-
going here.
the
And
line
then we go
going-
over here and catch.
Is a newer line.
Yes,
New good PVC. So
Yep.
That sewer line, that was one of those that had the sleeve for it, about 90-inch.
oh, that. the
That's what's in it
place
right
by-
now.
Yeah,
Now, okay, if you raise that pipe up, are you going to take my line from the property line and redo it into that line, or how are you gonna handle that?
yeah, so what we do with them, in this case, 303, the adjustment we're making to that main is probably, you want to bring the profile up right in that area, the sanitary sewer. We're probably only changing it by a couple of inches. And so what we'll end up doing is retying that in so that it grades in uniformly. As we get further down the line, it'll change a little bit. Okay, right there. This is where we're jumping on that line. This used to run a little bit steeper, but not much steeper, and so we're not picking up much right at 303.
Well, it drops probably in the street from the,
This manhole is 13 foot deep.
yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause mine at 309 drops 4.5 feet from grade to the mean.
Yep.
So where mine comes out now, and then at 45 it drops into the main,
Yes,
is any of that gonna be replaced?
yes. It'll be replaced back to the property line. It'll be relayed similarly, but it'll be brand new pipe then, brand new PVC from that
That
point.
is, I got brand new PVC on that one.
Oh, you do?
That's like brand new condition except for the elbow that's broken in the street. They got broken in the last one.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking, because it's decent pipe. I mean, it's brand new, it was built in 79, it's brand new pipe. And so I'm just questioning some of this extra cost and some of this, if it's in good shape, why are you spending a lot of money to do if it isn't necessary?
When you look at the overall project, what we're talking about is 15 feet of 4-inch sewer service.
Services are paid by
Oh, each, okay. What do we have for an estimate on it? Oh, right here, we've got $90 a foot in here. So what we're talking about is
$1,000.
probably $1,000 for a pipe that's almost 50 years old. Yeah, it's plastic and it's in good shape, but they don't last forever.
It's in perfect condition because I had school not a couple years ago.
So we can,
So,
we
what are
can
you
get
gonna
out-
do with the elevation? So that's the elevation of the sewer line. What are you gonna do with the elevation of the street in that Third Avenue?
go ahead to the street profile. Our existing grade in this area is very, very close to what we're doing with it.
Are you going down or up?
Right there, we are going up just a hair
Why?
to level out a dip we have right here.
What are you gonna do with the yards so you don't end up with a fiasco like you did on Third Street last time?
We're reshaping the boulevards to get those to tie in, and we are not changing grade here enough to cause a backup of yards out to the street. We've made sure that we stay down below it, so.
Because you know what I'm talking about on Third Street.
Yeah,
Those inches of the curb and gutter got raised by inches over the sidewalk, so now you end up building a dam
Right.
to fill those yards with water. You're not doing that, you're saying you're not gonna do any of that on Third.
We've looked at the sidewalk to curb grades to make sure that we don't have that problem, because that is a pet peeve of mine.
Okay, so like the driveways now, in their current condition, their current slope and shape, and they'll be equalish,
Equalish, yes.
okay? Now, the only sidewalk on Third Avenue on the north side is at 303.
Yeah, we've got 2 or 3 squares there for the sewer line, and
Okay,
1 square there to make the driveway tie in, right?
when you guys did the first phase, and you screwed that corner up and put all that whoopie-doo down for that handicap accessible, you changed a bunch and you made it wider than it existed. And so now, if you're gonna take out that couple squares you're talking about in the middle,
Those were
there's
gonna,
only gonna be 2 squares left. So you're gonna have this wide sidewalk, and then you're gonna cut back down to the existing, and then you're gonna go wide.
no, we're gonna be the same width on those.
Then why was the first phase?
Because the ADA ramps require that we go to the wider area. And so we're going to, in a situation like that where we have to build the corners, where we have to tie into the corners, we're going to build the ADA ramps as close to required by federal law as we can get them. And the sidewalks behind it, because we are not tearing out all the sidewalks, we're only doing patchwork, we are avoiding that cost of replacing them all to federal standard. So we are doing exactly what you're anxious for us to do, and that is to minimize those costs by minimizing what we impact and only putting back what we absolutely have.
Okay, so let's see now, up on Third, I think there's only one other house up on the east end that's got sidewalk. Where there is no sidewalk, you're not putting sidewalks in. right?
Nope, we are not. They're not there, we're not putting them in.
Talking about landscaping, you know, that first phase, the landscaping was atrocious. I had a lot of complaints on 303. Both on the east or the west end, and in that corner where that stupid handicap thing got all screwed up. Luckily, these new landscapers that came to repair the first guy's mistakes did an excellent job.
Mhm.
What are you guys gonna do in this phase to correct the mistakes of the landscapers and the contractors so that I, as a homeowner, don't have to go out there and round up somebody and say, hey, this isn't cut. I agree with what you're doing, it's not right. Those landscapers on that second one, they were excellent, they took very good care of problems. So, what is your plans? Last time you used the same old crap dirt with the rocks and the garbage and the trash. What's your plans on this go around?
We're pulling all, wherever this hatch is in these boulevards, wherever we're going back in here, we're taking all the topsoil out. Taking the topsoil out, replacing it with imported topsoil so that we have it as good as we can get it. And then we have 200 pounds of live seed requirement in here, which is, you know, on a DOT job, they put down 28 pounds per acre, we're doing 200. And then we hydromulch it. That will not guarantee that it's not gonna have weeds in it. All dirt has weed seed in it, and it's all about how much water it gets.
What are you gonna do behind the curb? When you tear out, you'll be cutting back that foot behind the curb. And then you're gonna replace, what are you gonna do in there for the dirt? Are you gonna take the cap, roll it back like you did last time, or are you gonna dig it out and move it, and bring it back new?
If I may, we're bringing all into our thing, and I just want to talk about the difference between those two grade schemes that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So what happened there was their contractors, subcontractors, that landscaper, do not understand what was required of them to lands and using those properties. We were holding the contractor to that standard of, no, this work is not gonna fly, you have to talk to your subcontractor, and they ended up switching subcontractors to meet that standard. That happened because we were looking out for this. Because we are looking at those specs and making sure that's going to be maintained, and we're going to do that again in this second phase. We are going to make sure that those inappropriate materials aren't in the soil when it's planted. We're going to make sure that if the soil has been sitting, it's sprayed for weeds as we did last time, and we're going to make sure that quality material goes on there. And that's all we can hold them to. After that, it comes down to water, nature, and a prayer.
If the concern is about a project that's not complete, then it's difficult for us to say, yeah, we've got to do something really, really different. The project wasn't complete until they changed subcontractors and had the last guys do it. So if you ask what we're going to do this time, that's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that we stay on them until they get it right.
Now, on this paper, you've got a few blocks of just streets. You got a few, yellow block with just street blocks, street water. You have street sewers, street water and sewer. You have a cost per foot of property for each of these different,
No, we do not have a cost per foot of property. We've got a total estimate put together at this point in time, and we've got a total footage of the project.
okay, so this one I'm gonna throw at the council and the mayor. If you have a total number for the project, how do I know what's coming at me? On my property on Third Avenue, we're talking 2 out of 3 things. I own another property on Fourth Street that's gonna get hit with all 3 of them. So a public hearing and everything, I have the right to protest the street. I can't protest the water and sewer. But do I have anything to protest? And I know that you've changed that schedule from 25/75 to 75/25. So I still haven't got the bill for the first thing.
Right.
So how, if I got at 303, if I got billed, I had work done on my west side of 303. And now I'm gonna have work done on the south side of 303. Do I get charged for both? And how's some of this work?
Well, typically, Todd, I mean, we can't pull a number out of our hat as far as any part of this project right now. It hasn't been bid. So we don't have an actual dollar figure for this project. We have an estimate for the entire project, but we don't have, it isn't broken down by blocks. Like if you do a complete block, like water, sewer, and the street, curb and gutter, you know, the whole 9 yards. After the bidding process, we'll be able to actually at least give you a rough idea. You're not going to get a foot charge, you know, basically $1,000 a foot or whatever, you know. We're not going to be able to pick out a dollar amount like that, but at that point, you can get a really close estimate. That's the best I can answer that. You got a better answer,
No,
Ken?
that's exactly right. And I have to apologize. I misspoke. We have an estimate of what we think this is going to cost. We don't have a bid number yet.
I'm
So
just questioning because in 90, when they put the water and sewer and street in front of the house, we had an estimate and it ended up running very closely. And, so we kind of knew all that before they started.
Well, I think we can get really close. After we get a bid in, I think we can get really close on an estimated cost per lot. But until it's bid, the way construction costs have been, the last 5 years, you know that as well as anybody. It would be futile almost to put a guess on what it's gonna cost per house or per lot. So really, until this goes out to bid and we get an idea that way, I don't think, maybe at that point, we have to have another public meeting to let people know. That's the best I can answer that.
And the second question of that corner lot, that's done on both sides of it. Historically, you've been special on the longest side of your lot. You don't get both sides, so. That's something me personally, I guess, I think we need to maintain. That you pay for the longest side, and you don't get both sides.
Well, I don't think it's fair to charge both sides for the simple reason you got the blocks using, everybody's got access to that, So in fairness, you should be paying what the other ones pay.
Your front, whether it's your frontage or your longest side.
I gave my link to Patrick, so.
Go ahead.
May I make a comment? So initially, when kind of started discussing the phase 1 project, I know it was mentioned that if someone had a corner lot, that they would only be charged for one side. Not the longest side, yes. They wouldn't get charged for both sides. So I just thought I'd let everybody know that.
And when you were part of, you were the long city council person, that was something
That
you
was
guys had.
definitely brought up and agreed on that if you're, which I am, like Todd, on the corner, and I see orange and red, yeah, it's ugly.
Well, and I think it's fair.
It's gonna be one side and the longest side,
Right.
but you're not getting charged for both streets because this is, and this, I know I'm jumping ahead here, but like 6th Avenue in front of my house, the state did that how many years ago? When they did Main Street and 6th Avenue. And God help us, we do not get that contractor ever again, because that sidewalk lasted maybe a year. It's, the old stuff was way better than whatever that is.
I think, you probably can rest assured on that we're gonna be fair on that. We're gonna get it on both sides of that.
Now, on the east end of Third Avenue, is there much change of anything there that's gonna happen, or is it gonna be, is the east end of Third gonna be equal to the west end of Third? Very, very little change in elevation of the street, the curb and gutter, and
So that would be Doug Larson and Marco Williams.
Next page, right?
Yep. and this one, where it dead ends into that steep gravel bit here.
yeah. Can you go back to the west a little bit?
Right here, again, we're not changing it by much, just changing it by a little bit. Here's the storm sewer that's causing us the problem. That's why we are going back to you just to catch this so that we can get this pipe cleared. But the road itself isn't changing by much.
And that intersection would be made right where that ladder sits in the intersection all the time in front of David Woods' house.
On
Fourth and third intersection. That's another part of why it has been built and made by Silver Fact.
Yeah. The valley gutter has grade on it.
So that
Yeah.
works.
And so one of the things that's important to note for everyone in here, the direction that came from city council on this project was we're not doing storm sewer. And so, you look at early estimates versus now, that's about $1 million difference and so what we did is we made up for it in our grades to make stuff work.
That's that catch basin that's in that alley down in that little spot.
Yeah, we're not going to it. We're going past and it is what it is. But we're not obviously gonna wipe out the storm sewer that drains it, that comes across the street. That's what we're,
That still's gonna run.
and so,
Yeah, you can't even get into that going down in that, you're gonna go backyard and can't get full in the area. Why I put it on, it's waste.
Must have been a 100-year flood or something.
oh no. Any other questions, please, sir?
Well, you got any questions on yours, Mark?
Just one. On the location up there, I'm at the corner up there, Third Avenue, and District.
Or 19.
Next page.
Right up in the top left-hand corner says house.
Okay. Fire away, sir. Yours is the other sidewalk one,
That's correct.
okay?
At that location, you're looking at replacing the driveway to the sidewalk.
That is correct. Yep. Up to the sidewalk, and then we have two panels of sidewalk right where the sewer line comes in.
The only other question I got is because I sit in the corner up there. During construction season, and they're working close to the other schools, and they have issues with giving us.
I can field that one if you want, Ken.
I got the note right here.
Okay.
How's your alley? Mark. How's your alley access, Mark? Sorry, I just had.
The way we've got the note in the plans,
isn't.
sir, is it says
I
access,
know.
the roads can be signed as closed to through traffic, but must always remain open for residents within the work limits and to emergency vehicles. The contractor shall ensure access is provided to all properties and provide signing, barricades, and flagging as needed. So we are requiring them in the plan notes to maintain your access. One way or another, they're gonna have to work with you to make sure that you're okay with what they're doing, but
And I'm sure there'll be times too, and we're just going to not be able to access it just because of the location. You got the street in front of the place and the street, so those are our two entrances and exits.
yep, understood.
And we did monitor it on this other one. I mean, not just the engineering company, but the council. And there was a few times where they got to have a friendly visit to get some gravel put in front of the driveway so people could get in and out of their driveway and move equipment. So we will do the same for this project.
Very good question answered. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Would you guys mind going to 414 4th Street?
Sure thing.
Should be close here.
Okay, 427, oh, next page. I got 403.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, this is 6.
No,
Go back
You
one.
gotta go more.
That's, I've got the intersection of 4th Street and 3rd Avenue on the screen.
It's a block and a half south of there.
4th and 4th.
Right there,
The last one. Top left.
top left hand.
Top left, 414. Okay,
Okay, the green is,
the green is the sewer service, bringing it in. We've got it going very close to where your water service is right now. Both of them are laying side by side, I believe.
yes, they are.
And so we've got the sewer coming in at that point, and we've got the water over just a little bit, I believe, on the water profile, if we can bring up that sheet. So we've got 4 sidewalk panels there for those 2 services to get in.
Isn't that the one? Both of these go along.
One more sheet down.
It's in the middle of the page now.
Okay, 414. So we've got the 2 of them sitting right here.
Now, on the water there now, what are you doing on the water line replacement?
Here we're jumping offline. This is AC pipe, correct?
We're not wanting to remove the existing water lines.
Okay, so leave the old one in place, sitting here. We're jogging offline a couple of feet to the north and then putting in the new line. And we'll abandon that other one in place.
Okay, and then for the service line then, you're coming off your new main with new pipe, and then what about the curb stop?
New curb stop. And then we'll connect on the backside of that to you.
And what about sewer line there? You're coming off your main,
Off the main, new 4-inch over to you, and we tie in at the property line.
okay, so that on there, just to clarify, right now there's 4-inch clay tile with a 3-inch plastic shoved in
Okay,
as far as you can get out. So you'll get rid of the clay tile, you'll find that PVC to cut that off back at.
at the main,
Property.
or at the property line, yeah, and then we'll do a backwards reducer and increaser, right? 3 to 4.
And that street is changing in elevation, how much?
Again, looks like we're really close here, if you wanna go to the actual street section.
So,
Yeah. This is what's gonna get me by the end of the night. 414 right here, so we're replacing the driveway and the sidewalk next to it. Our grade is, all we're doing is flattening out center line a little bit. It's got some bubbles in it. We're just flattening it out, but it's not changing appreciably.
So the approach there, the wing is on another property.
Yeah.
It's still in the boulevard, so it's city property.
Correct.
So
But
does
it
it,
does extend
it
past.
doesn't matter if that wing.
No, sir, it
is
does
over-
not.
Okay,
Wings can go past.
and then it pretty much maintains the same width.
Same with, we have it as 13 and a half feet right now on here, which looks like it's tying in actually a little wider than what your current one is. Because I can see the existing drawn behind it, it's probably 11, 12 feet. And so we're gonna be just a little bit wider than that.
Is some of that extra going on the other property, or is it moving north on?
It looks like it lines up really close on the south edge here,
Uh,
within, just about perfectly, and then it extends just a little bit to the north.
Now that sidewalk, and I guess I'm gonna ask this for myself and everybody else. How was that handled in the last project where if you had, like there now, if they take out 4 blocks of sidewalk and the other 4 are total crap, how do we go about if we want that done so it all looks symmetrical? Like on my property there, for example, if they're gonna do 4 and I want the other 4 done, how do we go about having the same contractor do it if we want to have? How do we come up with a number for price?
We didn't deal with that in the last time, it's a good question. Because, anybody that wanted additional work on.
Well, that whole sidewalk on Fourth, from Third to all the way to Sixth. Just bad. A lot of the sidewalks up in that whole thing are terrible, and I guess some of that should be looked into, and an option should be allowed for like myself, if I want to continue that. It's a 50-foot lot, if I want to do all 50 feet of it. I guess I'd like to know, so maybe if that's something you guys could.
Typically, like a contractor that's bid the project, he's bid strictly on what's on the sheets. I mean, he's not gonna bid more than that. They don't typically like to go, take on more than what they got on the project, because if they spend another few days on yours, it puts them behind on the next thing. And so a lot of times on these contracts, you're not gonna be able to get that contractor to do the work. Of course, you can always pick up another contractor to do, that work as well. But I guess by talking to that contractor would be one option. I mean,
To physically walk out, talk to them and say, hey, I want to do the whole thing, can you give me a price?
go ahead, Paul,
Um,
or Patrick.
so one thing I'll say is that this kind of goes in line with what we were talking about in the last council meeting about those water and sewer services. And we will be at the pre-con mentioning to the contractor that homeowners might want additional work and might be brought up. And we're going to provide kind of a form to be filled out at that time. And so that could be something that can be rolled into that. So that way you have something to discuss with them if it's something the contractor's interested in doing.
Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of your options. You're gonna be able to approach that contractor as he's doing it. Go ahead.
We did that last time with a few of the driveways, people wanted them widened.
Yep.
And so what we did was have them speak with the contractor, and then Donovan sent them to me, I got them the building permit, and then I just let Donovan know that it was approved so that he can let the contractor know. With something like Todd is talking about, obviously it's maintenance, it wouldn't need a building permit, but if we could roll that into something like Patrick was talking about, where there could be some kind of form that the contractor can have you guys fill out. We did do that on numerous areas of CIP 1.
Yeah, I think creating the form, having it set up for extension of the sewer line up to the house, if the person wanted to do it, the water line to the house, having more sidewalk go in, having something extra done on the driveways. We have that form. The best we can do is create it for you guys, and then hopefully that makes it
And
smoother and easier for
if they're doing
everyone.
something like sidewalk, that's maintenance, but if they're widening anything that's not already existing there, they've got to have building permits before that happens. We had a little bit of a miscommunication last time, but Rhonda and I fixed it pretty quickly, that we both got on the same page and realized that I think sometimes maybe the homeowner was talking to me and not so much to them, or vice versa, and so then everyone kind of realized that the engineering firm and myself were on the same page, that this is what was going to happen for their work to get done. It kind of smoothed itself out, but, so there'll just need to be some communication to make sure that I know getting the permit or not speaking to those vendors.
The only thing that we want to avoid is us managing,
Yes.
for instance, your part of the project. Yeah. We don't want to have anything to do with managing it, making sure that it's right.
We'd hate to have to send some of these people back to the planning and zoning, because I heard the guy that's running that is tough to deal with. But
But, we talked about that last time, where people can, visit with that contractor, if he's open to do the work, then that's a business agreement between that property owner and that contractor.
And what we wanted to do with that form, just a quick review of what it was that we had in there, was an agreement signed between the contractor and the owner at the beginning for the quote, and then at the end that the homeowner has accepted it. And that was to keep it from being a nightmare for Lynn later on. We wanted that piece of paper to come back and say, yep, we're good, and then we're done with it.
Well, I'm just looking for a little normalcy, you know, so that if I do, I don't want to, I can hire 3 other guys to do that little bit, but I just thought, keep it all even and the same, that's what I was looking at.
Agreed.
And then I'm not looking for that part, the assessment, you know, just pay it.
well, chances are they're gonna have a sub do all that kind of work, and that's your best bet anyway, to catch them before they got everything formed up. And
Take the boards, actually, come down with us 10 more minutes.
Yeah, those guys.
One for,
Big project, which corner are you gonna start in, and
Yes,
how are you gonna work from there?
can't answer that. That is up to the contractor. They will decide. Usually, the only thing I can say is usually on sewer, you want to start at the bottom and work up. Okay, and that's where we're going to, that's the way our spec is written. That's what they have to do, is start at the bottom and work up. So, because if we start at the top and work down, we run into a problem anywhere, we're in trouble. So we have to start at the bottom. So that means we would be starting close to your place there. That's the bottom of the line.
Is this a one summer project?
We
or-
have it set up. We have I think we have it set up for substantial completion by the end of the season. And then the final punch list items, similar to what you saw on phase 1, would be carried over into the next year. Because we run out of time for seeding in the fall, for instance. So,
the wish list is that it's, or
1 year.
sidewalks could be better.
In the first.
Yeah, we have.
In that season. And then the cleanup can happen in the following spring.
You know, on that first phase, for the first couple of weeks, we had a communication notice hanging on our doorknob. Sometimes every day, every other day, of things they were gonna do. And after the first couple of weeks, and that just went. We never heard another word of communication. I guess it would really, and I think Mark kind of hits the nail on the head too. Knowing what's kind of going to be happening so that if the road is blocked or if something's gonna transpire or if we have to do something different to get in or out, you know, more than just the first couple of weeks of the project, if we can have some communication through the whole thing.
yes.
on our-
well, I think probably a good answer to that, Todd, would be to week, basically, well, not only social media, but the Montreal County Promoter, for instance, have an update and a plan going forward for the week, for the following week, and to tell you what the major parts, because their schedule's gonna change all summer long. I mean, there's gonna be things that change their schedule. But if they could be a week ahead in the paper, to keep people informed, I think that would be a great thing, and I don't think that's hard to require.
Okay, so here's what we've got in the plans right now. Public Relations Coordinator. The contractor is required to provide a public relations and information coordinator. Coordinator should be knowledgeable in construction operations, able to develop effective media releases. Reads like a resume here, but they have to be accessible at all times. They're responsible providing, they have to tell Tuffy exactly what's going on. She actually got honorable mention in here. Upcoming construction activities regarding street closures, traffic detour routes, so that everyone's aware. Provide news releases and necessary drawings to the media before and during construction. Update news releases regarding construction activities every week at a minimum. And then we have create and update at least weekly a Facebook page for the project, providing the information in the news releases in item 3 above and adding project photos. Be available for media interviews. Work directly with property owners and businesses affected by construction activities. Contractor must have sufficient knowledge and authority to resolve property owner and business concerns regarding scheduling, maintaining access, and construction operations. So we are putting some teeth in here to say, well, you're required to do this, and then we have the ability to hold them to it to say, you've got to provide this information so people are aware. Patrick?
So in the first phase, what kind of ended up happening was they were originally putting those notices on your door, like you mentioned, but they ended up relying heavily on that Facebook page as their form of communication. We've already kind of talked with Chad when we had this sit down, and was relayed to us that that's not going to be how communication is going to go this phase. And we're going to make sure that there is alternative forms of communication given by the contractor to the homeowners so that that isn't as heavily relied on.
Some of us old people don't have Facebook and don't even know what they're involved in.
And that was the point.
Yep.
If I could add something, when they did the Wavy Main Street and 6th Avenue, they had a contractors meeting once a week at City Hall. And trust me, I was there every week, but that was one way to communicate with, and this was before Facebook, so.
Yeah, and I don't disagree that that's a good idea. I don't know that it'd have to be every week, but there should be at least a monthly meeting open to the public, I guess, with the contractor and engineering. Will you get a lot of attendance? Maybe be it widely attended like this one. But, the opportunity's there at that point.
Absolutely.
They're quick if they're not attended,
Right. So,
5 minutes.
Yep.
and I tell you, when I was a contractor, I didn't mind those meetings. We always had them. And during the flood control project in Grand Forks and stuff, I did it weekly. And we did have people turn out for that meeting, but it kept homeowners happy.
Yep.
And much easier to deal with. So I think they're a good thing.
One other plan note that I would like to point out, because it kind of came up as for what the plan is. We do have a winter suspension note in here on page 1, if you want it up there. Any block which the pavement surfacing is removed during the 2024 construction season must be 100% complete and operational prior to 2024 winter suspension. Winter suspension will be from November 20th to April 14th, or when the frost is out of the ground. Engineer will impose a daily charge for liquidated damages of $1,000 per calendar day for any unfinished work. The engineer will suspend the charges during winter suspension. So we have liquidated damages to hold them accountable for getting the roads put back together again prior to winter, to make sure that we're in good shape there. Any other questions we can get for you? Have we,
Took care of my list.
fantastic.
Where I agree with liquidated damages. I do.
Yep.
To the extent that there's common sense,
Absolutely.
that goes along with liquidated damages, because if you get 3 weeks of bad weather in October and you still have pavement to put down on the ground, we don't want that pavement put down until spring at that point.
Yep.
Because it's gonna be a mess. So we don't want to force somebody to do something that
But we
would
want to
be-
bring them to the negotiating table so we can figure out
That's exactly what
a
it's for.
cooperative, a mutual understanding of what we can do.
To me, that's what they're for.
Well,
Yeah, that's
to give you a
exactly
good example, you can get that additional drain, 2 weeks of wet weather, up from the ambulance garage down to the funeral home in front of the USDA building. That's part of the reason why that manhole cement changed, like, they dug that whole bit up 3 different times over there because of it being too wet.
Well, and it's an issue.
You can end up with terrible road that you have to maintain the rest of its life by pushing them guys just to get it done, so that it's done.
Right. I mean, and we've all been through a season with a gravel surface. That's not the end of the world. It's a lot better to have a good one put in the spring than it is to force somebody to do something they don't want to, basically. So I'm glad there's liquidated damages. At the same time, they have to be used where there's common sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, if we've got your questions answered, then we can back up and kind of go through some of these other plan notes, catch highlights along the way. Or do you want to go to plan and profile sheets instead?
We
I
could,
saw it all, so
Yeah.
whatever they want.
What is the black box with the red around it? I don't see what it's supposed to be on the right-hand side.
What page you
Right
looking?
between Fifth Avenue and
That's repairing a storm sewer. We did a video inspection of the storm sewer, and there was one piece of storm sewer that was shown that was failing. Rebar is showing, and there's cracks, and it's no longer flowing because it's dropped down. So we're replacing just that one pipe of storm sewer. The rest of it was in working condition, so we're leaving it be.
I think if you could just do a rough overview of each block, I think
Okay.
we'd be fine.
Okay.
Everybody okay with that? Huh?
I think you got Third Avenue.
Well,
Got third?
yeah,
Covered well.
well, and it's good to take one anyway, one section, and really kind of scrutinize it. Kind of lets you know what the other ones are basically going to be.
Yeah.
So,
Is there any one of them that jumps out at you as a, I wonder what they did with this thing?
I do, I wonder right there, on Sixth Avenue, why it's pretty much showing over the houses and not really over the street, is it not cutting into the street, or what's,
That is our cross the front yard one.
so we're not gonna touch the street at all there?
I can get it, what you did there. So, in this case, we don't have, the existing sewer is running back here and there's easement across the front of these lots. And so we're running in that easement and replacing what was there. Sewer was running there, water was running in closer, you believe, right? And we're moving it out. Is that right, Patrick?
So Sixth Avenue and the utilities along it are kind of been the biggest pain in the head of this whole project. The sanitary sewer runs part of it in the DOT right away, which we've now got an occupancy easement to exist there, which we didn't have before. The water main has been located in 2 different areas, one 10 feet north of the sanitary sewer, one 10 feet south, and we're not sure which one's correct. However, that water main is believed to be asbestos cement, which we don't want to touch, because if you touch, you go into all kinds of regulations. So our plan for this area is to find where that water main is by exploratory excavation, put the water main away from the existing, and then tie in and leave the sanitary sewer where it is right now. So that way we don't run into potential issues of working where that asbestos cement water main is. So in essence, that pipe locks the sanitary sewer into where it is because we don't want the potential chance of running into conflict with that dangerous material. And that's why we're showing the area that we are right now.
That
Those
answer?
those were my two main questions.
So at my house, on the corner of Sixth Avenue and Sixth Street,
Oh, right there.
right there. My the water shut off is like 3 feet off my deck. If that,
We're showing it way up here.
yes.
It's gotta be pretty, yeah.
So is that being moved?
So what we're doing in those situations is we're not chasing all the way up to your existing curb stop. We're standardizing all the curb stops 2.5 feet behind the sidewalk in the boulevard. That's where the new curb stop will go in and we'll tie into your existing pipe there.
Chances are that's 1-inch copper, right, coming from that curb stop out to the water
Yeah.
line, out to your corporation on your pipe. So that's gonna be good. I mean,
Yep.
typically.
Yep.
So you wouldn't have to really tear up your yard at all on that, Linda.
Do you have sidewalk on the slope? You don't even have sidewalk on the slope. Is there a sidewalk that runs all the way?
But I don't on the west side. There's
Oh,
no sidewalk
all
on
right,
the west side.
west.
Does that seem like a reasonable way to handle it? And all of those will now be, because everybody's is at different points there. And-
I kind of figured that
Yeah.
when they were
Try to
out,
standardize
kind of looked,
somehow.
I had a few public works people wandering around in my yard and I'm like, what are you looking for? Well, your water shut off. I went, it's right there. So, I mean, I don't know. And did anybody ever figure out which direction my sewer runs? According to my plumber, it went to Sixth Street, and according to Curtis, it went to Sixth Avenue, so.
So the way we determined those was we actually looked at the old videos of the sanitary sewers and then we marked the areas where we saw the services come in, and that's how we determined where the services were coming into the certain houses. So that all came from video inspection.
And if we're wrong, then we'll end up moving around the corner, we'll put it on Sixth Street, and you'll know by the end of summer 2024.
Yeah, you're gonna find it one way or the other there.
Yeah, we can watch them, we can die test them and find out.
The other thing is for areas where we weren't sure, we add exploratory excavation, which is to be used at the engineer's discretion, where they will be digging as they did in the first phase when we had to locate where the existing sewer main was along, I believe it was First Street. There's a lot less of those hours in this one because we don't have that situation. I believe there's only 25 compared to 100 that we put in the first phase. And
This will be one of them where we have to find that
Yeah.
water main.
so
One side or the other.
there is an avenue to look if we're wrong in a way for them to get paid where they're not going to be able to force a price on us at that time. There will be an upfront price that we'll know, and we'll be able to use those hours at only our discretion, so that way they can't abuse that either.
But you're absolutely right, we'll have dye available, so we could dump dye in here, and if it doesn't show up in this manhole, we know you're going to this street, not Sixth Avenue.
So right across the street, I know I was another concern, a handful of council people and this public works, phone call that you talked about that one when I jumped over. It'd be a block west.
Yeah, that one that, we haven't talked about that yet, where the power pole was. is.
We'll let it pull it.
You're down the corner of Sixth and Fifth.
Go to the paving sheets probably.
That's your mobile.
Yeah, here we go. So, yeah, we looked at this thing and there's that bump out around a hydrant and an old streetlight pole standing here. Well, if you go out there and you look up at that streetlight pole wire coming down, wires are wire nutted off. When they pulled the light off, they just wire nutted them off. And there's nothing else fed back to the alley, this way. So what we have in here is a note for the contractor to remove that pole. We picked up an easement on the back side of the sidewalk here, to take the hydrant, push it back to the back side of the sidewalk, and now we can open that corner up to make it easier for snow removal.
Just makes that jog out of the street, makes it square to where it should have been. Goblin has to have the hydrant in the yard.
That'll be nice.
But it cleans that whole intersection up for the traffic, for public works, for
The homeowner.
everybody. So
Like we do that corner,
So this is probably as good a street as anything to look at kind of the approach that was taken for what we're doing. Sewer line here is being replaced in the same location. Again, that's the easiest way to make sure that we catch all those services as we go, because we're gonna be digging right where the existing line was, so we'll catch them all. We're connecting them all on, running them back to the property lines. Here, the water line, we're jumping offline of the existing one, paralleling it, and then putting the new services in. Curb stops are going in. This is actually a good situation here, 529 and 525. They share a driveway that runs back through between the houses. And the curb stops for these houses sit here in the middle of that driveway. And so what we did in this case is we pushed the curb stop over to be in front of their homes. And then after we leave the curb stop, we'll go back over to where the old curb stop was and tie off. So that it's clear which one is which and they're better defined.
but that's still a double line going each property.
There's a line going to each property.
Probably a couple other highlights that you might want to touch on is that intersection at 33rd, where we're going to see us cut some brand new asphalt out to make that so that it's right.
That was just a patch, wasn't it?
That was where they were going to take off and go with new from that, and have a seam right there initially.
Yep.
And it's going to be cut back to the valley there.
Yeah, because they cut it, they poured it, and then they cut it in half and did something and changed it.
Yep, and then the other spot where you're gonna see us cut some is up on the north side of that whole clinic, from the center line to the south letter. Because that flow is not very.
Right.
That's a result of making the decision to not do any storm sewer improvements. We needed to do something to get drainage in that area to work, so we're having to chase that gutter line back, catch some of that grade to the west of there, turn in the right direction. I was confused. To the west, we gotta chase some of that grade back to get that water to flow.
Ken, just an overall concern of people's, how long is it on their sewer? Water don't seem to matter as much, but how long is it on their sewer that service is going to be interrupted where they can't use their sewers?
Yep, perfect.
And is there anything in there to make sure that that doesn't happen? Or, well, it will happen, but I mean, make
Yep.
sure it's kept to a minimum.
I want to go to the actual note that we have in the plans on, you already there, page 7. I believe. just read through it too. Maybe it's page 5. Fingers sticking together.
Well, I guess I know the answer, but I just want the answer.
No,
to be
I prefer to
Public.
to give you exactly what we've got in here. No, that's not the one. I don't think that was the one. Well, maybe it is. We have in here that they are required to maintain. So providing the following plan over 20 water serves all existing structures. Page 4. Yeah, it's got a little more teeth to it than that. No, it's still not the one I want. We have a note in here, and I'm missing it. That they have to notify the private homeowner that we're going to be cutting into their service. We have 48-hour notice. Oh, it's on page 2, 108 PO1, public notification. Contractor shall make every effort to maintain sewer service usage throughout the duration of the project. If a connection is out of service, the longest period of no service shall be 24 hours. Public notification program shall be implemented. At a minimum, contractor will be required to contact each home or business connected to the sanitary sewer, informing the affected property owners of the work to be conducted and when the sewer or water will be offline. So, written notice to be delivered to each home or business the day prior to the beginning of the work. Local phone number of the contractor so they can call, discuss the problem. Personal contact with any home or business which cannot be reconnected within the time stated in the written notice. So they have to coordinate as they go. And contractor should give notification 48 hours in advance of closing any street to all homeowners and the post office before we close the street up. So I think we've got them locked down to make sure that we're getting that notification taken care of.
20, they can be out sewer though for 24 hours, you're allowing that?
That's what longest period of no service should be 24 hours.
That's kind of a lot to ask of someone when people look there. I mean, they're not like they're 23 and you can walk out their backyard and keep that tree.
No, but, I mean,
I think every effort needs to be for those homes that don't have that ability,
Should we,
that they get to put in the service at night, whether it's temporary something.
yeah, I mean, that's nice, but most of those people they've used other means when they were younger.
if you want, we can change that to 12-hour notice. So that makes it within the same business day or same installation
The
day.
notice part don't bother me as much as the outage time, because that can be.
Well, I mean, we can make it a maximum of 12 hours, not 24 hours to,
That's just my opinion. I agree.
24 hours.
24 hours is a long time to not be able to flush it.
Go ahead.
Shower and bathing, whatever.
So the other thing on that is the contractor's not allowed to do sewage work other than Monday through Thursday. So no one can be left of the weekend without it. So it's normally on the working days. And the only way that they can bypass that is by getting approval from the city to do it on a Friday. So that's just another thing to keep in mind too, that we're not talking about any time on weekends here or times where people are more likely home.
I guess I don't, some days a week when you're using the bathroom, it doesn't matter if it's a Monday or a Saturday. I think like every day.
Thanks for that information.
You know, I mean, seriously, I just don't think it's okay to not have service.
Okay, let's change the note.
That last contractor, for example, now he worked, was it 10 days on and so many off?
4 off.
So I mean, he worked a lot of Saturdays and a lot of Sundays.
Yep.
So when you say Monday through Thursday, does that include a guy like him who?
He would not be able to work on the sewer on the weekend. He'd have to work on water on the weekend.
He only did that because the get was.
But there should also be where, like Patrick just said, I mean, the opportunity for that contractor to talk to us. Because I mean, if he's working in 10-day on, that's because of labor with his crews and stuff. And don't limit the contractor, basically, you're gonna hurt the project.
I don't know, that's what I was getting at. I agree with him being able to work, because those guys had that all ironed out, worked out to the T. They're 10 days on, and then when they took off, everything was cleaned up and
Yep.
taken care of, so I guess.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with them doing sewer work on Saturday, that don't bother me, but what bothers me is that people could be without service for 24 hours.
So let's change the note to 12 hours and go with it. Does that sound reasonable?
That's up to the group, not the individual.
And supply a bucket, it'll slide under their bed.
You work the machine tire. Dump it down the storm sewer, I guess.
I didn't hear that.
Do not talk about putting it down the storm sewer. I've had to clean
I didn't
storm
hear that.
sewers.
Okay, 12 hours, that's the consensus.
Okay, you've got that noted over there, right? Okay, it's changed. I honestly don't recall how we got to that point, so
Well, for a couple of the other things that we're in discussion with that.
we covered that extra manhole that we stuck in.
Ken, on the road, where there's the most changes as far as what block is there the most drastic changes, like for road elevation or curb height elevation?
Where it's so flat.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one, go to that.
That was what, 3 inches we talked about the other day?
Yeah.
We looked at 3 inches is the most we're looking at. That's
So that's what I want to bring up,
Yeah.
is so that,
So one thing that's a little bit deceiving about these plans, and I don't necessarily like it, when you see phase 3 plans, they're gonna look slightly different. I don't care necessarily about the center line profile nearly as much as I care about the curb and gutter profiles. And if you set your templates up correctly, but it's hard to do in a situation like this where we're doing rehab on new stuff, it's nice to set the top of curb and the center line at the same elevation.
exactly.
And then set so that everything works. And then you just do special profiles for the curb and gutter in situations at intersections where you have to make little adjustments.
Well, it's much easier that way.
You're just kind of looking at them all. So what we're doing, what you would notice on these sheets, it's a little hard to see, but there's arrows in the gutter lines that we're using to identify which direction the slopes are going. And then our electronic files that we'll give to the contractor to make sure that they build it properly have all of those profile lines in them. No. It's not steep enough. We've got a few at the intersections where we're having to drop down to get the flow to run across them properly, trying to fix the valley gutters so that they work. They're always tricky. It's a magic. It's a real balance between making them drive nice and flow nice.
Right.
That was the other thing that we talked about, so we didn't have that same alley entrance that we had behind, so we didn't have that same alley entrance issue at, kitty corner from Cliff and Judy Score's place.
Yeah.
Where the water flowed off the street down across the private property.
Yeah, this is probably our biggest adjustment here that we're making on Fourth Avenue, right at the intersection here. Brought things up. We fought this area quite a bit to get it to work properly, but we got there. I feel like we got there.
Couple other things that we talked about were they were gonna talk with the people that had the extra driveways, like where they picked up a second lot maybe next door. And that extra driveway is not being used, not putting that money out to re-pour that again, just to go into their yard. It'll be curb and gutter straight through where they agree to it. If they demand that they want to keep it, then we're obligated to make that adjustment. But any place that oddball sidewalk goes to nowhere, that's being removed so that there's no extra costs there.
One thing that we did differently in phase 2 than we did phase 1, back to your point about the ADA ramps, in a lot of these locations, we consolidated them. Instead of having 2 separate ones, we consolidated to a single shared one on the corners. And by doing that, we reduce the number of panels that we have to do, and reduce our sidewalk quantities.
Right.
The only
So
place that
makes
you can
sense.
is if there's a yard light pole or a power pole in that corner, then you don't have that option. You have to
Right.
go.
yeah, this is a perfect example of it. We went to the corner, to the corner, to the corner, and here we had to go to, we still had to keep the split. So, but we're only putting in 5 sets of panels instead of 8. So
Right.
it does save a little bit.
And then there was a couple that we chose not to put in at all because they went nowhere. There was no sidewalk to cross to. So why?
Well, and actually what is the rule on that? If there's federal dollars in it, they have to be put in. If there's not federal dollars, they don't have to be put in?
Roughly.
Isn't that,
Basically, that's the case. Yes, we're supposed to go in and make everything ADA.
I understand that, but as far as the law goes,
As far as the law goes, if we're doing curb and gutter, we're supposed to be putting the ramps in. But if the sidewalk doesn't go anywhere, then we don't.
Right.
We can make the case.
Or if there's no sidewalk.
Yes, yeah, and that would be that's what I'm getting at. If we put a ramp in it and it doesn't have any sidewalk tied to it, it doesn't make any sense.
now, I mean, I had somebody ask me, they said, well, can we put the sidewalk right next to the curb? And, change that basically. Instead of the sidewalk being in where they are and having a boulevard, how about let's move the sidewalk right out to the edge? And, I mean, there's people that are considering that. The biggest problem with that I see is there's no sidewalk if there's a lot of snow.
Exactly. There's no snow storage at that point in time. And it also makes it very difficult when you need to go and do adjustments to grade. Sometimes that boulevard is really helpful to give us a few feet where we can make those adjustments and have that boulevard a little bit steeper grass and what you could do with a sidewalk. So
Right.
it-
I know what they're getting at, that way they have lawn all the way up to their house instead of, and it's cleaner. They do it in a lot of places. There's no question
Yep.
about that,
Yep.
but
a lot of places don't get the snow we do.
exactly.
I have a question. So across from Linda to the west.
6th and 6th.
Yeah, so it'd be Randy Dolan's corner there. Kitty corner from Chad, kinda.
Well, he's bringing it up. Okay, here we go. This is 526.
Yeah.
Okay, fire away.
So since we're not going down that direction on Sixth, what are we doing on that corner? Anything?
We're bringing our curve to an end here. We're just ending at that valley gutter.
Okay,
And
'Cause
then
that's
we're
probably one of the
putting
worst.
Water services in over there as best we can figure out what's going on. It is a little bit interesting over there.
Yeah, because from like just a sidewalk standpoint, even on Sixth going through, that's probably the worst spot in the whole stretch of the road. That one little corner there, because there's all the mailbox pots and but it's because that section of sidewalk's tiny. But then it doesn't go north and south.
That's on the east-west road, so that's on state.
Right, and since we don't have anything on north-south,
Yeah, we don't have any, there's no sidewalk on the, up over here. No, this is where see our first sidewalk. Up here, 516.
yeah, and that doesn't continue to the other side.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, with,
One there and one there.
I guess
let's,
what I'm getting at is if you continue from, Linda has a large sidewalk with ramp access. And then you continue through, you're gonna basically just run into a brick on it.
Yeah, you don't get anywhere. So we're not fixing that. Because we're not doing a sidewalk project, we're doing a utility project that happens to affect some sidewalks, and that's where you get into that gray area with the ADA requirements.
Gotcha. Okay.
okay, let's take a 10-minute break. And when we come back, we'll try to wrap this up.
Okay.
I was just curious.
We don't want it, it's all you. Forever,
Well, it's just that if you make comments, should hear, they can't hear you. Cause yeah, you're on the microphone.
No, we're never taking it back, forever. No, I think last time.
You can definitely see where.
On your phone, they're gonna be stuff for like bike driveway. So I guess for me, there's this thing to do would be, if there's anything that is not allowed, like, send me on the form or give me a holler or something. That works. Yes, but I mean, like, who's gonna be in charge of like, who's gonna be in all this? I think she probably could, yeah, to have all the information and not really be something that. If we need, we need to know this or that or whatever.
That's where, if you and I were to make
You
that,
don't do everything. So then you can't have a. Right.
Yeah. You go talk about it.
No, there would be.
If somebody brought up, you know, you look at it and say, it's not good in there.
Just say this.
That's good. And I don't know. That's. Because I want to know what it has
Yeah, you're not figured out. Probably need to, you know, that you can send over the form seconds and have free time. Will you let me know when that is so that you know, I know what will be there, but then. At least, let me face it out and that way. Yes. You're stuck with it, Patrick. You are.
You can't put a sign that says no parking. Right, post office. I mean, I don't agree with how the postal service dictates that you do there. No, not putting no parking, just putting the post office box where the.
They don't just want it.
Yeah, we don't want ordinances, we just want.
So you don't want to have a post office. Exactly.
Well, shit, the post office, so I was gonna put it on somebody else's. That's a lot of money.
Which is interesting, because you have a place follow.
I cannot believe, Lord, that you can go put your property on somebody else's property. Actually, it's on the city. Put them on the city property.
Curtis and I tried to get the post office to be cooperative on the camera.
They can't even do it.
Well, because here's the thing, right where that is, Ferguson didn't push snow. Well, they were like, okay, this is where they need to put the snow, this is where everything goes in, so it's gonna be impossible for you guys to deliver mail. So we walked up the street, we went back from the post office, and he basically said, yeah, we do what we want when we want to. Well, don't call us when you can't get mail delivered either.
You want to hear a word story?
Hmm.
I started this around, I'm actually stopping in Level where I walk and develop patches and stuff like that. The car is on the corner, and this is 30 feet of clearance. I I could get my 13-person passenger van up and they'll off. And they're saying they're up there.
Yes, I think that van is really.
It is.
That is awesome.
No one's upset. No one's on top of each other, no one's fighting, we get all the way to Minneapolis.
No, was there bloodshed or was there just no fight?
There was no fight, no bloodshed. There's not burning full snacks and praise ceremony.
Oh my God.
It was.
Patrick's gonna figure it out.
So, yeah, you
I know, can you just drive us around town?
Get a hot one. Check it out. Yeah, somebody to worry about. Well, that even.
Patrick's gonna be interested about the van. Is there any more room for lots of kids? I'll keep it on home. Go wherever. And wherever the holiday season, they stay for. And yes. Yes. Nice. I don't. It's amazing. The only thing that I'm mad about is like the article right by the mall. They used to have this thing where if you knew and go to the car, and you went and asked for a car wash, you get like a 49-cent car wash. Well, then they switched to 79 cents and they changed out the car wash and put like all 5 dinners in the thing. And now they do that. So like, no, you used to be able to get the secret 49-cent car wash. And they didn't advertise it. You just went up to the thing and you're like, well, can I have a car?
Is everybody back? Well, if everybody's back, we'll reconvene. I have one question, Ken, for you, like plan elevations versus actual elevations. Something that come up just this past week, actually. The inspection on this, as far as Bros' intention on having an inspector out there.
We will intend to bring you a contract for full-time inspection. We're going to, because of the complexity of these municipal projects, we are looking at building that proposal, bringing in one of our senior inspectors that in all likelihood a registered engineer that we'll have up here for it to be out there full-time.
Okay.
Compaction testing.
Compaction testing would be in there based on the, testing requirements that are in the plans.
Okay. Well, the reason I bring that question is like the plans state 9-foot cover like over on our road at Country Estates. And it's not 9-foot cover, it's 8. And that's why I'm questioning this, is our contractor is going to be held to what the plan elevations are going to be.
We were hired to do that, yes, sir. We were not hired to be full-time inspectors on Country Estates. We were hired to be so that makes it difficult for us to have with them. We were out there quite a bit without being under contract. We're contract full-time.
Yeah, because and we do, and either that or we need a third party is, what I'm thinking, either one or the other, because generally, the contractor was trying to do his best over there. I'll give him, the guy that was actually working on the project, I'll give him that. But there was a 45 that was definitely leaking, that was caulked, and I happened to see it on a Saturday morning, And there was no inspection there at the time when I seen this. And they were gonna push it back on with the track hole, which I called it out right away. I said, no, you pull it off and fix it right, check the gaskets. Sure enough, the one gasket was shot. You know, had they been able to push that on, down the road, we're gonna have a problem, or it wouldn't have tested again. We ended up changing a valve out that would not have needed to be changed out because they thought that was the problem on their pressure test, when actually it was not. It was the 45 that was the problem all along. Then it becomes a change order when you change out a valve like that. And where do you go with, it's one thing changing out a valve and putting a new valve in. I'm not so opposed to something like that. But what do you do with all that labor and the excavation and all of that when it wasn't the problem?
Right.
Now, should the city have to eat that?
What I can say is, that is open to discussion, how much of that situation needs to be handled in this individual case. But what we've done is changed the way we're doing our design in these plans to prevent those issues from happening. And what I mean by that, many times engineers will design a water line project and they will go to the end of a line and they'll put in a plug on the end of a line and they'll say, okay, well, that's the end of our job, and that's where they stop. And that's okay. That's an okay design. Then you get engineers that are more conscientious and they say, hey, we should put a valve on the end of this thing, so when we go to extend it later, we have a valve to tie onto and we can take off. And then you get guys that have been around it a little bit longer and have dealt with being blamed for a leaky valve that may or may not be leaking. And what we do with our designs is we put lines in so that we take off from a contractor installed valve on that project. Every tie-in on this plan set now is made where we take off starting with a new valve tied onto the old pipe. And so we have a place to test against the contractor's valve.
Exactly, and that's really a good idea. At the end of a line, like you were talking and putting a valve on, I would be one of those guys that would be opposed to putting the valve on. I would rather have the plug, and this is the only reason. Those valves never get worked, as you know.
Exactly.
And so a valve that does not get ever worked isn't gonna last.
Yep.
It's gonna go to heck on you. So that valve is basically useless at that point.
Yeah, it's a really expensive plug, isn't it?
It is. And so I see no benefit in it.
This is one step further down that course. What we have at the end of this line, where we have the potential to take off in the future and go to farther to the east, what we did is we put a hydrant at the end of it because it provides a marker at the surface for exactly where the end of the pipe is. Gives us an opportunity for Duffy to be able to go out here and flush this line,
Right.
because we're sitting with the water, with a main
Dead.
here that can get stale, and only one service, 501, is the only service pulling off of it. They don't use enough water.
Exactly.
So if we start having an issue with our residuals, or we have stale water in 501, Duffy can go out, open this hydrant up, blast this line, and clean it out, and then we're all set. Now, when we're in a position here where if this street takes off in the future, having a hydrant here would be beneficial. So we call for, on the next phase that goes to the east, take the hydrant off, install a T, install a valve so we test, put in a T and then install the hydrant over here behind the curb.
Yeah.
And we're reusing the hydrant, so we don't have anything go to waste there. We're testing against a brand new valve that is installed by this contractor, and we have a clean main that we can work off of. We get rid of all those battles. That's what you will see from Bros going forward, because that's the way my guys design.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Ken on this project? And I might add that there's going to be things, if this gets sent for bid now, there are going to be maybe items that we see down the road on this that before the pre-con, or basically before an award, that may have to get changed or will get changed, whatever. Because it also gives people more time to scrutinize this plan and, you know, so I just wanted to add that this isn't a final, I mean, this isn't life or death here, this final thing.
Our recommendation as your engineer is to get these plans to where you're satisfied with them and advertise and get out to bid as construction for 2023 is winding down and the guys are starting to plan for 2024. Historically, you get your best prices by bidding early and then having construction, scheduled for the next year, slated the next year. That's our recommendation to do that. And that does not remove the ability to pour through these plans all winter long before they start construction, see things. We're going to find things out in the field as well that.
Well, yeah, and I don't believe in bidding something out in March or April because people's plates are already full.
Yep.
And you're not gonna get your best dollar at that rate, so
And we still have the ability to reject.
we do.
Absolutely.
So,
It's too
with
much.
that said, I mean, is there any other questions from anybody?
All trees will be addressed way ahead of the project or ahead of time in the project so that we don't have oddball bills come in.
Yeah.
Irritated people because a tree happened to have to be cut down, there's a chance that you gotta take one off.
Yep. We do have a few trees that have to come out that
You know,
are going to
we
happen.
talked about that, too, that those people would be notified well before.
Ken, do you have any more, that you think we should address, or?
I don't, I really don't. I think we've got a really good set of plans here. We've taken to heart comments that we've received from you, Mr. Mayor, from council members. We all learn from the school of hard knocks, and I'll say that my guys are a heck of a lot smarter going into 2024 construction than they were going into 2023 construction or 2022.
I appreciate that.
So
Patrick, do you have anything to add?
I just want to say if there's any homeowners listening or watching the live stream who have questions about their property or have anything like driveway widening that they want to see done, to please contact as soon as possible. I'd be happy to go out and meet them in the field by their house and address it with them, look over it, and bring over any papers or exhibits they need so that way they can see what's going on. So just anyone who couldn't make it here, just give us a call. The number is 628-3340, and I'd be happy to meet with you.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Todd, for coming. Appreciate it.